That's a Band-Aid for truly changing your relationship with food. And more importantly, it's a Band-Aid for you actually wanting a lifestyle, you actually wanting to be able to not track your food for forever, not feel like all you're doing is being the one person who's saying no to the drinks.
Let's link up with Krysta on The Fix. She's a wellness coach with a focus on mental well-being and physical strength.
What's up, Fix listeners? Welcome back to our latest episode of the Fix podcast. I'm your host, Krysta Huber. We are hitting that halfway through the summer point, and I'm seeing an uptick among our Fitness FYX clients of more and more people going on vacations. A few weeks ago, we talked about the whole approach to 4th of July and how to focus on things that had nothing to do with your food, but a repeat theme that I'm seeing in conversations with clients in the last 2-ish weeks or so have a lot to do with this whole concept of staying on track on vacation and what that looks like and what that means. And then similarly, the language of getting back on track when you return from vacation. I've done the episodes before talking about the approach to how to think about breakfast, how to think about lunch, what to prioritize. And I am going to touch on those things over the course of the next few minutes, but I want to paint the picture for you of why you feel like crap, honestly, when you come back from a vacation. And I'm going to paint this picture in a way that when I say it to you, you're going to be like, yeah, no shit. When you put it like that, of course, I'm coming back from this trip and feeling like blah. And how can I just possibly get back on my routine? So here's basically the 4 or 5 things I would tell you to do if you wanted to guarantee that you don't feel well following a vacation, that you feel like you've undone some sort of progress. First, drinking alcohol every single day on the trip. And when I say drink alcohol, I mean also barely drinking water and not subbing in other forms of hydration other than having that alcohol. We do not believe inside the Fitness FYX that you need to give up alcohol completely. But whenever somebody comes to me and asks about where does alcohol actually fit into this conversation, it always comes down to the same question every single time. How quickly are you looking to make certain progress? Because if you have a tight timeline, if you want to achieve a certain amount of pounds lost or body percentage dropped, or just generally feel better because you'll sleep better, because you'll have more energy throughout the day, because your digestion won't feel so funky, then yes, avoiding alcohol is going to make sense. But just had a conversation like this maybe 3 weeks ago with a client in talking about 4th of July weekend. How do you handle the situation when other people around you are doing the same thing? It just comes down to asking yourself, okay, what do I actually want? And does that really matter relative to the other people around me? Am I still going to have a good time? But if you just don't want to feel your best, you're going to cave to all the peer pressure and you are going to say, okay, I'm going to drink with the best of them. That is number 1. Number 2 is you eliminate all movement entirely. I mean, forget the gym. Not even going on walks. You're going to the beach and you are sitting your butt in a chair and you are not moving. Guys, come on. We can do better than that, right? We have the 20 minutes to go for the walk. And more importantly, if you feel like you don't have enough time to fit movement in on a regular basis, when you're in your typical routine between work and social life and kids and all the other responsibilities, can't we make the argument that when you're on vacation, you actually have more time to go do it? Doesn't have to be a workout in the hotel gym that's full of PRs. It could be enjoying the fact that you're in a new location in a different environment, ideally with great weather, and you're getting outside and you're moving your body. Or yeah, maybe it is just a 20-minute walk on the treadmill. The next is, I would say that you're refusing to compromise at any meal. So you're approaching every single meal as if it's the last freaking supper. And I know this can happen when we are in situations where, let's say, it is a hotel, it's an all-inclusive, you have the buffet style scenario, and you're like, oh, I want to get a little bit of everything. And then all of a sudden, a little bit of everything turns into you overdoing it. Or the other scenario I hear with clients a lot is going on trips with extended family members, other families, everybody either going to the grocery store and dividing things up, or everybody bringing in lots of different snacks. And then you have certain foods in your environment that you're not used to having around. If you want to feel like shit when you come back, just say, screw it, and eat all the foods you wouldn't normally eat just because they're there. What else did I put on my list? I had like a list of 10, and I was really trying to pare it down. Overeating, skipping your movement. Oh, yeah. Ignore protein completely. This kind of goes in the same vein of thinking about overdoing it at each meal. But let's say it's back to that breakfast example. If you're the person who usually has the egg whites, you have your protein shake, but then you see that there's the pancakes and the waffles and the muffins and the croissants and all those things. Choosing just the croissants, the muffins, the waffles, and ignoring the opportunity to still get the omelet, that is going to contribute to the I don't feel like myself starter pack when I get home. And then the last one, which has more to do with mindset, and you guys know that I care a lot about the mindset and not just the tools and the steps and the exact approaches we're going to take with our food, is you coming home and then completely panicking and restricting yourself and convincing yourself that what you're then going to do is do a complete 180 from the behavior that you had on that trip, where every moment you had a carbohydrate that was in the form of gluten, you're switching it over to all vegetables, all fruit, nothing else, deciding that you basically need to go some extreme version of tracking your food or following something super, super restrictive. Because then what happens? You're just living on this pendulum that is quite frankly ridiculous, because life is gray. And the middle is exactly where you are going to build an approach that is sustainable over time. So let's talk about the middle. Let's talk about what it looks like, because the other objection I tend to hear from clients heading into a vacation is, but what if I don't want to track my food? And then there starts to be a little bit of a mental spiral around, okay, well, I've been tracking my food for 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, whatever. I don't feel ready to not track it at all, but I'm not sure if that's going to allow me to still make good decisions. Going on a trip is the best opportunity to test your food education. Meaning, do you truly know, without looking at MyFitnessPal, which foods represent protein, which foods represent carbohydrates, and which foods represent fat? Do you know how to make those compromises without actually overthinking it? Meaning, if you take a step back and you say to yourself, yeah, I had the higher carbohydrate-based breakfast because I went for the pancakes, the waffles. So at lunch, maybe I'll think twice about having a wrap and switch that out for some kind of chicken with a vegetable, some kind of salad, because I also know come dinner that I'd like to have one of my go-tos, a burger. Yes, over the course of the day, all three of those meals that I just described more than likely are going to add up to higher than your typical calorie intake because you didn't cook them yourself, because there's oils and butters and other things that you didn't factor in. But it's still a better alternative than if you were just like, screw it, I'm going to do what I want. It is the difference between, if we had to put numbers on it, 3,000 calories in a day, which is not wildly impossible if you then throw drinks into the mix, versus 2,200. And doing 2,200 calories on a daily basis for 7 days is actually way more realistic in you still feeling like your best. Now, when we think about the nuances of like, what food should I pick and what should I choose here and there, I want you to actually zoom out a little bit further than that, because like I said, I've done that podcast episode. And more importantly, I want you to be able to feel like your food tracking is a tool, as in it's just kind of like taking the training wheels off, and then you get to test yourself without the training wheels. So it's asking yourself questions like, right before you're about to sit down and have a meal, what is going to make me feel my best in an hour, in 2 hours, tomorrow? when I wake up in the morning and decide if I want to go for that walk, what is the domino effect of you making the decision of having a certain meal? And if the answer is, yeah, I'm going to say hell yes to the pancakes because that's going to bring me joy in this moment. And I also know that I'm cool with making some adjustments to my lunch. Well, then there you go. You have your answer. The other piece is obviously going to come down to movement. I hinted at this in poking fun at the whole, here's what I do if I wouldn't want to feel well. But it's like, you don't have to be some crazy athlete while you're on vacation. You can adjust your approach to vacation to thinking about what things excite you about movement. Is it the fact that you're in a location that you don't spend a lot of time in, that you can do a lot of outdoor activities, that the weather's looking really good, and that you get that extra dopamine hit from actually being outside and not just from moving your body alone? Lean into those opportunities and take advantage of that. And then look at it like you're basically giving yourself like an anchor point. So outside of movement, that could also be prioritizing getting to bed earlier. You're not worried about checking emails. You're not worried about having to wake up with an alarm, but that doesn't mean that has to look like you staying up super late just because you quote unquote can. It can look like you saying, hey, I'm actually going to use this trip to revitalize myself a little bit by leaning into getting sleep and really focusing on my evening routine and putting my phone in the other room or putting it in do not disturb because I'm away. So who actually really needs me? And then when it comes to those food choices, I want to encourage you to look for one win of the day, meaning can you spot like where you got the most fiber because you really prioritized eating vegetables in a specific meal? Can you think about how you can actually build a plate that has a mix of those anchor points of like the main source of protein, a good quality veggie, but then something else that's a little bit fun, whether that looks like you saying yes to the dessert that you don't normally always have on a regular basis, or it looks like the example I keep going back to with the brunch situation and saying yes to the pancakes, the waffles, and things that are a little bit more indulgent like that. If you find yourself every year, even though you've actually made an approach and made an adjustment to how you think about food, to tracking your food, to understanding macros, to prioritizing protein, to whatever it is along that fat loss journey, if you find yourself that on repeat, anytime you go on vacation, it turns into more of that free-for-all mentality, what I really want to push you to question is your approach when you're not on vacation potentially the problem? Because I would argue that it is. And I would argue that it might be a problem because you're using the tracking, the prioritizing protein, the structure that you have when you're not on a trip, almost as like a little bit of a chance to be so in control that you're then telling yourself, oh, well, I did that to just kind of do whatever I want when I'm away. That's a Band-Aid for truly changing your relationship with food. And more importantly, it's a Band-Aid for you actually wanting a lifestyle, you actually wanting to be able to not track your food for forever, not feel like all you're doing is being the one person who's saying no to the drinks. So it's encouraging yourself to see how you handle these situations and allowing yourself to pull back from tracking your food. That's actually going to help you decide, do we potentially have more mindset work to address inside of your typical routine and that structure? Because yeah, I'm so proud of the client who can be so diligent in tracking their food 7 days a week and commit to a fat loss goal so that over a 16-week calorie deficit period, you lose 16, 20 plus pounds. That is going to take a lot of discipline and saying no to certain things and recognizing that other people might not understand the journey that you're on. However, it's not, I'll say, worth it, or it's not something that is going to be the long-term solution for you if you're constantly treating dieting like this on and off switch to where you then use a change in your routine for you to just go balls to the wall in the opposite direction. Because that's that pendulum swing. And the pendulum swing does not represent somebody who feels like they trust themselves and feels like they're confident enough to actually make the right decisions. So in using this vacation example and using the falling off track language, what I really want to challenge you to consider is that a representation of your self-trust? And have you not made that connection before? And if you haven't, going on a trip and taking a vacation is truly the perfect time to do it. And coming back and then self-reflecting and asking yourself, was that actually how I wanted to show up? And if the answer is yes, amazing. You're well on your way to no longer being the person who feels like they're constantly losing those same 15, 20 pounds on repeat. You're also well on your way to being the person who doesn't believe the story that this has to feel hard or it has to feel complicated. You're on your way to being the person who believes that this just gets to be who you are and how you operate. That you're the person who is going to order the hummus and the veggies one day by the pool, and then the next you're saying yes to the fries, because you can do both. You have that relationship with food. You have that ability to be able to do that. And I think that's the most freeing place to live. So with that, save this one, listen to it. If you're road tripping in the next couple of weeks, if you've got a flight in the next couple of weeks, come back to it. Treat it like your pre-vacation prep conversation. And from wherever you are listening from, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you guys next week.